Alright guys, so you have your mise en place ready. I'm going to show you, this is for your pork chop, alright? I brought in some butter. You don't have to use butter, you can just use oil. So what we're going to do first, you want to go ahead and get your omelet pan, saute non-stick 8-inch skillet. Get that going. Oh, sorry, I just washed my stove, so it's... There we go. Get that on low heat, or like medium, because you want that to be getting hot. Meanwhile, find a small pan. You can use a muffin pan, you can use another small skillet, whatever you want. We have these at school, so I like to utilize them. That's our iron skillets. So what I'm going to do, first thing, I'm going to spray that with some pan spray. And I want to get my muffin mix put in here. I need a spoon. So your muffin mix should be done. It should be from yesterday. You're going to open that up. Just scoop that right into your baking pan. You can use anything at your house. So if you have any sort of muffin tray or small pan or muffin tins, whatever, just use what you have. I have a ton of these, so we're going to use these. So spread that out. Make sure you get it all in there. Put that in your dirty dish pile. Go ahead and get this straight in the oven, okay? Set your timer for 15 minutes. Okay, that's gonna take 15 minutes. Meanwhile, in your pan, go ahead, crank that up to medium high, get some oil in your pan. I'm gonna take out my pork chop or chicken or whatever you decided to marinate, and these are gonna be kind of wet because the salt is gonna start pulling that moisture out of the pork chop, and overnight, it's gonna pull the moisture out, and then it's gonna basically dissolve all the salt and spices and do kind of like its own marinade. So your rub will actually make this very wet depending on how much salt you put on it. So you want to dry this off really well is what I'm getting at, sorry. So put some paper towels down or a towel. Make sure it's nice and dry, because if you try to pan sear this when it's wet, it's going to pop and crack all over the place because you're adding water to hot oil. So my pan, I can hear it cracking a little bit. I hear it getting hot. A way to test this, just take your pork chop. You want to hear a sizzle. You guys hear that? So I'm going to put this in. Got a nice sizzle. If you were to cook this without the pan being extremely hot, it wouldn't make any sound at all, but what's going to happen is you're going to put the cold meat in there, and it's just going to draw all that liquid back out, and you're going to have like a soup, okay? You don't want that. One thing you need to do, though, see how this is starting to cup right here? So your meat is going to sear around the edge, and it's going to lock, kind of make a seal on it, and it's going to force that air from the heat up. What you want to do is kind of break that a little bit. Keep that pushed down so you get a nice sear on the entire chop. I gotta take my glasses off so I don't get covered with grease. Alright, so that's searing. You're going to hear it crack in there. What's happening is this fat ring and this line of like sinew pretty much is once that cooks, it shrinks and it's going to force the meat up in the air. So you want to prevent that from happening. One thing you could do in the future is if you took a pair of scissors or a knife and just cut that right there, that'll keep that tendon or that sinew from cupping, like, because it'll break out, it'll just be cut open. So we're going to keep frying this, move it around a little bit. What we're looking for is a nice brown ring around the bottom, and it's going to start turning white up top here. The blood's going to come out of the bone, and a little juice is going to come out from the chop. So meanwhile, while that's cooking, we have our onions. A student cut these for me. Aren't they beautiful? Onions and garlic, and then here's your baby kale, okay? One thing you will want to do at home is go ahead and have your plate ready. So I'm going to have mine sitting right here, so once I get done, and I'm done with this tray, so I can put all my dirties on there. Once I get done cooking this pork chop, I need a place to put it. Okay, that's one of the main things people never think about is, this is cooking, what am I going to do with it when it's done? And you can't just take it out and walk around with it. You need a nice spot. So mine's cupping up a little bit, so I'm going to keep pushing down on this because I want a nice, even sear. You can hear it frying in there. And then, if you can see, I'll Raise this up. See the brown around the edges? That's what I'm wanting. And this is getting extremely crispy. And this is still on like medium-high heat. I'll show the flame. If you have an electric stove, if it goes from like 1 to 10, put it on about 8 because you want it to be pretty hot. All right, now it's getting to that point. So I'm going to turn this a little bit so I can see it. And that's kind of how I want it. See how you got that nice golden brown? There's the cup right there that I was talking about. One little trick you can do is go ahead and cut that if it's bothering you, and it'll flatten back out. So we're gonna fry this. And then I want that golden. See how that's nice and brown right there? That's called fond, or like the caramelization. The fond will be on the bottom of the pan. You want that good caramelization in your pork chop because it's gonna have a nice sweet flavor to it. All right? So you're gonna move this around, keep pushing it down. So the pieces that flop up, give them a little push. If you do a bigger chop, this is really thin, so that's why it's curling up like that. If you do a thicker chop, it won't bend like that because there's the protein's denser than the fat, so it'll stay down. So we're just gonna keep searing this. Push it down a little bit, and you want that same color on the side, or on the other side. So look, a little bit more. Alright, so I got the same color. We're going to take this out, let it rest. Now in your pan, turn that down to medium-low. Put a little butter in there. Don't dump out that oil. Add your onions. You got a lot of onion in here. Don't season this yet because you're going to have a lot of salt and pepper, and anything you put on the pork chop is going to kind of go in your onions. And we're just going to cook this on a lower heat. And what you're looking for is your onions and garlic. Then the onions will start to turn translucent, and you could be able to like clear, and you'll see through them a little bit. She got some ununiform cuts in here, but they'll work. But you can see now like why you want to cut these all the same size, because if you have these little pieces, they're going to be cooked way faster than these big chunks that are in here. So you're going to cook this until they start to turn clear. And it doesn't take very long. See that in there? You can see them. One good spice that goes great with kale is crushed red pepper. So if you have some of this at your house, just put a little crushed red pepper in there while it's just the oil, and it'll kind of bloom and have a good flavor to it. Toss it around. And it's starting to get the little golden edges here, so you can see that, and that's what you're looking for. This will cook down a couple more minutes. Meanwhile, your oven, you're at 8 minutes and 34 seconds for the cornbread. Leave that in there. Don't keep checking it. Wait. Let the oven stay hot. The more you open your door on your oven, the more heat you're going to lose, and you don't want that. Because if you start to lose heat, it's going to take longer to bake. Okay, so these are starting to turn translucent. I'm going to add the kale. Just put all of it in there. You don't need to prep this at all. It's washed, and the stems of this are very tender. So you don't need to worry about it being tough. Alright. And one little secret trick is if you have, while this is cooking, take your onions and garlic container. Put a little water in it. The reason you want a little water is if this gets too dry, or if your measurements of oil and stuff are a little off. Not that we measured them, but it's kind of just by eye. Well, there's the garlic. Oh, she didn't even cut that. Start mixing this up, and this is going to wilt down really nice, okay? Let it wilt. And then if it starts looking too dry, hit it with a little water, okay? And what you're going to do in a minute is you're going to taste a piece of the green, and the green will be done. You will check this. They're going to be nice big broad leaves. Once they start to cook down, they will wilt, and they'll turn this really dark color, and they'll all be that uniform color, which I'm going to show you in a second. And then we're going to taste a piece, adjust the seasoning, and then serve it with our chop. Alright, it's getting there. I can smell it. It should be very aromatic by now. If you don't like the onions, when you take this out, you can just kind of pick out the greens and serve them. The onions just add a lot of flavor, which is nice, especially with greens. right, it's getting there. And if you like it a little more buttery, just add a little butter to it. If you want to cream this out, like if you want some cream spinach, hit it with some heavy cream, and it'll cook down. All right, see how this is wilted all the way down, and see how dark green these are? That's what you're wanting. Okay, at this point, I'm going to shut it off. Take my little tasty spoon and give this a try. Definitely need salt. A little salt. A little pepper. And you know I love my butter, so a lot of the butter kind of dissipated out of that. So I'm going to cook that down a little bit. Nice. And that's what you're wanting. See how that butter just melts in there? If you want to do a presentation, you know, you could do, kind of put this on here. You know, I'm not going to put all those onions in there because they're huge. So I'm going to kind of pick through that a little bit. I have onions in here, but I don't want all those. Let's kind of play around, you know. You can do your pork chop like that. The cornbread, we're at 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, I'll take out the cornbread and show you how to finish that.